project, you'll have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, wall sections. Staff will then present their staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you're here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of City Zoning Code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, design review comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones, and we will introduce commissioners. To my left, please.
Good morning, I'm Eric Shaw.
Good morning, Jose Jaloth.
Good morning, I'm Lee Ving Nguyen.
Good morning, Liz Welch.
And with us today, we have Ron Vila somewhere. Beverly Jusay is here. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle is here. And normally I'd introduce Dennis Fernandez, but I don't see him. So we have everybody. And we will get to the reading of the minutes of February 25th, 2020. So I need a motion to approve these minutes and get them into the record.
Motion to approve?
Need a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are passed. Let's see, okay.
Good morning, Commissioners.
I'm not used to this format yet.
Understood,
Way
understood.
over there.
Good morning, I'm Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Under announcements, we have two. We do incorporate all the staff reviews into your packets. So there's 3 months of staff reviews. That's last that we've been together. So we have February, March, and April and May's, 4 months staff reviews in your packet, so you can see what we've been doing administratively and follow along. And those are submitted into the record as well. And then just to keep everybody on task, we've been moving around some public hearing dates, but the next public hearing that's reflected is July 28th, 2020 in this room. So we're gonna be here, from what I understand, from July and August in this room, and then we'll see where this COVID takes us from there. On the agenda, the next item is election of officers. Through your rules, we elect officers in April, but since we haven't been together in quite a while, we have postponed that into today. So at this time, we could either do the election of officers right now, or we could delegate it to the end of our agenda. It's the pleasure of the board.
Let's go ahead and delegate to the end of the agenda, and we can get on with having folks in and out.
Kamaria, do we need a motion for that?
Yes,
Oh, sorry.
and I'm sorry, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. Can we have a motion, Commissioners, to move the election of the officers to the end of the agenda?
Move the election officers to the end of the agenda today.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The next item is conflicts of interest and ex parte communication. Kamaria is going to address that issue.
Good morning again. My name is Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. At this time, can any of would any of the commissioners please state for the record whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the matters or the items that are on the agenda?
The BLC T2002 that's being presented for the ad valorem historic tax exemption by Stephanie Farrell. Our firm, Wilder Architecture, is also working on that project, so I will be recusing for this particular presentation.
Okay, so that's in regards to the conflict of interest.
Yes.
And I'll get to that in
Oh,
just one
sorry.
second.
No
But
ex parte.
that's okay. But again, for the commissioners, can anyone state for the record whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are on the agenda? And for the record, I see shaking of the heads to indicate no, so. Now, going back to the conflict of interest, Commissioner Thompson, you were stating for the record that you, in regards to BLC T20-02,
Yes. Yes, this is a project that's in our office. We aren't working on the tax exemption portion of it, but I will be recusing because of our involvement in the overall project.
and your firm represents, can you just state further?
Sure. We are representing the owner on this project as well for
Okay.
architecture and design.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items on the agenda? Thank you.
Mr. Thompson, along with the information that you provided on the record, you do have a form in front of you. It's Form 8B that needs to be filled out and handed to Beverly by the end of the meeting.
Completed already.
Thank you, sir.
And just for the record, I'm sorry, the Madam Clerk does already have that application filled out.
So moving to continuations, we have 3 reflected. I'm going to do 2 different groups of motions. There's 2 that are continued to a future date, which is BLC 20-91 for the address of 2608 North 18th Street. And the second one is BLC 20-92 for the address of 2610 North 18th Street. Both of those are continued to a future date, and if I could get a motion for those 2?
Motion to move BOC 20-91 and BOC 20-92 to a future public hearing.
Need a second?
Second.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries.
And the last continuation reflected is BLC 20-122 for the address of 1499 East 7th Avenue, and that was requested by the agent to be continued to the August 25th, 2020 public hearing at 9 a.m.
So, motion to move BOC 20-122 to the August 25th, 2020 public hearing.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And the last item before we start the public hearing is the swear-in. Everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand, including staff.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Moving to our agenda items, the first one reflected is BLCT, which indicates this is for ad valorem tax exemption, 20-02. The address is 1619 East 8th Avenue. This is for pre-rehabilitation, so you're going to see some photos this morning of the existing condition and the route that the owners and the agent wish to proceed that are sensitive to the Secretary of Interior standards. After that, you could get into deliberation and go into a motion. You will see this again after the project is complete for Part 2, which is obviously the after rehabilitation part. So there are no photo essay that tags along with this request. There are many photos along with the ad valorem, and at this time, Stephanie is going to address the board.
And do we need a motion to pass the gavel?
No.
Or okay. I'll bring it over to you.
All right.
And just for the record, Mr. Chair has passed the gavel to the Vice Chair.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Farrell, and I'm the agent for the ad valorem exemption application for the owner. And with me, assisting me today is Marjorie Hagler, who works with me on many projects. So the project that we're looking at today is a building that was built in 1926, located at 1619 8th Avenue. It's a 2-story red brick vernacular style building. It's located on 8th Avenue, which is a less important street than 7th Avenue, in that it would play a supportive role to retail functions of buildings located on 7th Avenue. So the building is more simple than you're likely to see on 8th Avenue. The Sanborn map showed that as of 1931, it was a furniture store with storage, and as of the 1951 Sanborn map, it housed a wholesale grocery store. So the finishes, both interior and exterior, reflect those uses. In 2004, around 2004, the property was acquired by the Church of Scientology, where its functions included offices and interview rooms, so it was substantially modified on the interior at that time. And so there were basically modern finishes that you'll see reflected in our photo essay. It is a landlocked site, so have Margie point to its location. And then also if she can flip the board, and we'll see the site plan. So as you can see, it is basically a landlocked site that faces 8th Avenue, and there's parking on either side of it, and it's a couple feet between its rear facade and the alley. 7th Avenue would be to the lower side of this, down south where Margie is pointing. Okay, so next we'll move on to our photo essay. Starting with the front facade. Again, a simple brick vernacular building. The canopy was added, I believe, probably circa 2005. The awnings above were also likely from that era. They're certainly not original. The windows are steel and are intact and actually in fairly good shape, and they will remain. And I'll just mention that the canopy, which is there, will remain and just be repaired. The storefront is not original. It is stained wood, and we can tell from the depression in the curb cut, and also that depression which leads into the building, that was likely some sort of overhead, likely an overhead door, but anyway, some sort of door that allowed for loading and unloading inside the building. So again, sort of a warehousey type function for it. Okay, so that's a close-up of the circa 2005 awning and canopies. This is the existing circa 2005 wood storefront, which will remain and be repaired. And sidewalk will also be leveled to allow for ADA access to the building. This is the rear of the facade. A lovely thing, which will be vastly improved, and the openings that you'll see are frame and stucco blocked-in windows, and which will remain blocked in because it's on an alley. This is the west facade of the building. There had been window openings in it which were a long time, some time ago, probably decades ago, were infilled. They will remain infilled. This is the east facade of the building, which has some damage that you can see, which is part of the rehabilitation of the building. It will be repaired, and the repointing will be done according to the Secretary of the Interior Standards and Preservation Brief requirements. This is the roof. Normally, we don't necessarily focus on the roof, but there are some modifications to the roof, and we'll see that later in the presentation. This is the rooftop looking north, and this is the rooftop looking south towards the alley. And you'll see this is the freight elevator shaft. This is a building beyond that faces 7th Avenue, and the alley is right there between them. So moving to the interior of the building, again, you'll see the vernacular style of the building. There was some, the building was acquired in 2017 by another owner, and they did some removal of materials, although none of those materials, to my knowledge, were historic. I actually was in the building in 2017 and 18 during that time period for that previous owner. So we're looking at this photograph. We're looking north towards the storefront. You can see the original columns, likely the original columns, the spiral ductwork, which will be replaced, and the exposed floor joists and exposed brick. This is a close-up of the interior of the existing wood storefront, again, not original. We see a glimpse on the left of the front staircase, which is also not original. We assume it was likely done in 2005. Then we're looking towards the south of the building. And again, some of the materials, because there had been a drop ceiling in that area, which was drywall and of course not original. This is the interior face of the east exterior brick wall, and just to show you that its condition, what its condition is today, and it will be repaired and repointed. This is the stair that I mentioned. That we're looking from the landing near the first floor up towards the second floor, and you can see it's carpeted. The newel posts may or may not be original, but we're erring on the side of caution, and they are being reused in the design by Wilder Architects. And this is the interior of of what was at one time the freight elevator. The elevator itself does not exist, but the elevator shaft will be, the interior of it will be refitted to accommodate a modern elevator, which is part of the renovations, proposed renovations for this project. And this is the rear stairwell, which is also not original. We believe it dates from circa 2005. So moving up to the second floor, we're looking north from the corridor. And again, these partitions were installed by the Scientologist, the Church of Scientology. This is looking towards the front of the building. We'll see there's a conference room beyond. We'll see one shot of that as well. There had been a dropped ceiling, which was not original, again, 2005 era. And all of these partitions, which again are not historic, are going to be removed and replaced, and you'll see the plans for that. This is the second floor reception area as built by the previous owner, looking south. The acoustical panels of the drop ceiling have been removed so that the ceiling structure could be, the roof structure can be seen. And there is early or original wood flooring which will be repaired, and we'll talk about that later. Here's the conference room that I mentioned that's on the north side of the building on the second floor. So that concludes my photo essay, and now we'll move to the plans. So looking at the existing plans, I think Margie was walking you through those as I was doing the photo essay, and just basically it's all modern interior. So next we'll move to the next board, which shows the rear facade on the top existing on the upper left-hand corner. And you can see those blocked-in windows that I mentioned, and the projecting elevator enclosure original to the building, which has a window in it. And then you'll see the addition of two additions on the roof on the alley side, so far removed from the front of the building. And that is the stair enclosure will reach the roof. To provide access to a roof deck that we'll see in one of the next boards. And then, of course, the elevator had to include an extended shaft to accommodate the new elevator, which will also access the new rooftop deck. So you'll see those extensions, which are barely visible or not really visible at all from the 8th Avenue right away. And then you'll see the railing also is, the proposed railing is a very clean and subtle metal railing system. So next, actually, let me talk about the front facade. Okay, I mentioned the wood storefront. That will remain. It'll just be repaired, so it's identical. The modern era awnings will be removed. And then you'll see that. Then you see the rooftop, as I mentioned in proposed work. Okay, then next, board. These are the two side elevations, not too much to say about them, except that the railing is towards the alley, and will basically make the, will wrap around the new proposed deck. Okay, next, Margie. And these are the proposed floor plans from left to right, left being the first level. The first floor plan will remain largely open with restrooms and support facilities at the back. The rear stairs being rebuilt to meet current code requirements, as is the front staircase, which replaces, again, a non-original stairway, and the flooring and so forth. The materials of the floors are concrete in the main space. That will continue to be concrete, polished or stained concrete. And then there will be there is a new introduction of a partition between the stair and the first level in order to, as required by the fire marshal for smoke prevention. So moving to the second floor, you'll see the conference room, which was not historic, but it's actually, that space will remain in largely as it was configured in the 2005 renovations. Open office space, and then 4 offices with partitions, part-high partitions on their sides, and then glass along along the fronts of them. And then again, the sort of back of house restrooms and so forth towards the back of the building, and of course access to the elevator in the right-hand corner towards the alley. So moving up the elevator or up the back stair to the new deck, that is will be available to the owners, and the new use will be offices for the owners, so it'll be owner occupied building. So that it's a very simple and I would say complete, compatible and sensitive approach to renovating a modest brick vernacular building. Okay, so moving on to the next board is the reflected ceiling plan. The structure, the structure will remain exposed. There was no evidence. We looked really hard, Kim Headland and Margie and I, to see if there was any remnants of plaster or lath. There was none. Neither on the walls nor on the ceiling, rafters, nor roof structure. So that will remain exposed, so that's the first floor. On the second floor, the structure will also be largely exposed, except for there will be clouds defining the various work areas. Margie, if you can point to those drywall clouds that are suspended, so that you can actually see that the structure passes beyond and above those. There's a little bit of drop ceiling towards the back where the service areas are. So that concludes the interior plans and reflected ceiling plan discussion. And then the wall section, as required by the Barrio Latino Commission application standards, you'll see there's the section through the rear stair and up through to the elevator, showing the elevator on the left-hand side of this board. On the right-hand side of the board is a cut through the front facade, which shows maintaining the existing canopy, removing the awnings, and obviously retaining all of the brick facade and repairing and repointing as needed. And then if Margie can point to the partial glass partition between the first floor space and the stair, that is going to be wood frame and glass, and is meant to be similar to the existing storefront, wood and glass storefront. And so that concludes our presentation of the plans, except that I'm going to tell you about the finishes. So the exposed brick will remain exposed. The exposed structure will remain exposed. The doors will be stained wood along the storefront. There will be the glazing system on the second floor at those 4 offices that I mentioned. There will be skylights, and they're set back from the parapet, so they will not be visible to the public. There's a combination of stained concrete, ceramic tile in the some of the new spaces. Wood floor on the second floor is the main flooring system there. And again, the metal railing system for the rooftop. This represents the finishes for the existing canopy. And IFAS at the elevator, which will be basically painted a neutral color. The ceiling, part of the ceiling finishes, and then this is the floor finish at the entry. So, well,
Perfect.
pretty good. I think I pretty much concluded describing the finishes as well, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila. Moving forward with the staff report portion of the public hearing. When we get these period buildings and evaluate if they're candidates for the ad valorem, we look at the interior and the exterior. This building came forward to us through a couple owners ago, and we assisted them moving forward. At this time, the ad valorem is being sought. In 2018, there was a review and approval by this board for the storefront, for the sidewalks, to the repointing of the exterior of the building, and for the rooftop protrusions and access to the roof. So all of that has been reviewed and approved. She gave you an introduction of what was approved on the exterior, and then she focused mostly on the interior. Moving to the interior, what's recommended is evaluating the character-defining features of the inside and then moving forward in a sensitive manner to retain as much as possible. When our office first got involved with this, there were many contemporary additions to the interior, and you see the condition of the building now. So in working with our team, we had them remove some of those newer additions to the interior to see what we were working with historically. We're looking at the bones of the building. Very little bit of the building remained in place. So I believe Stephanie and her team went forward, evaluating the historic conditions and bringing those to light in this adaptive reuse moving forward. So that's a little history of where it's at. Along the way, we will work with them as well. She gave her presentation today, and through all renovations and really in historic buildings, it kind of multiplies as you get into it. You uncover different things, and as those items reveal themselves, we ask that they share that with us so we can assist them moving forward, and then you'll see the post-rehabilitation after the fact. So having said that, staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. We'll now open up the floor for any public comment. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period, the public comment, and then we'll have the commissioners ask questions of the applicant, starting with my left with Eric over there.
No, I have no questions. Thank you. Nice presentation.
One quick question. Thank you, Stephanie. It was a very comprehensive presentation. Just a point of clarification, on the south elevation, there appears to be an existing window that falls in line with the elevator shaft. Is that being retained?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Didn't know you could have a window within an elevator shaft, but happy to hear
It may
that.
be blocked from the interior, but it will show from the exterior.
Fantastic. Thank you. No further questions.
I don't have any questions.
And then, let's see. I have no further questions as well. Seeing that you didn't have any questions, you are allowed your rebuttal, but I think you answered that along the way. So we will now close the public hearing and
Well,
have,
and I apologize, Mr. Commissioner, can you just verify with the applicant that she does not have any time, she does not want to use her 5 minutes for rebuttal for the record?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay.
and then we'll discuss the case.
And are you closing the public hearing?
Yes,
Okay.
closing the public hearing, and then we can discuss the case and make a motion.
The project seems complete to me, and and Ron mentioned that they're willing to work with staff as they perhaps uncover any additional details that need to be retained, so I'm ready to make a motion. This is to move to approve the ad valorem tax exemption application Part 1, pre-construction for the plans presented at this public hearing in case number BLC T20-02 for the property located at 1619 East 8th Avenue for the rehabilitation of this property because based on the facts in the record, the proposed project is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Just before we continue to the next application, let's just pause a few minutes for Commissioner Thompson to return.
All right, let's go.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Make sure my mic is on. The next case is BLC 20-64. The address is 2801 North 10th Street. The zoning classification is YC8. If you look on the overhead that I have, you see that the parcels are a little larger than some of the historic fabric in Ybor City. This is north of Columbus Drive. Property in question is highlighted in the green box. It is a corner parcel. The request in front of you this morning is for a single-family residence with an accessory structure. Moving through the photo essay, as I indicated, this parcel is on the corner of 17th Avenue and 10th Street, which runs north and south. There is no alley access. A lot of times when they formulated the grid, they incorporated alleys, but in this particular segment, there is no alley. This is the Sanborn from 1929. Showed a large apartment complex that was at that site at that time. Once again, 17th Avenue and 10th Street. You see the fabric of the neighborhood. They're spread out, the homes. The yellow indicates frame construction, but you see that they have a little bit of spacing between all the homes. So this was a little sprawl in Ybor City. Series of shots looking back at the empty parcel. Now there is construction happening to the north, so they're using this site as a parcel staging area. It does encompass this small knee wall that is historically correct and will be incorporated into this project. Moving to the north down 10th Street. Property in question is to the south or to the right of this picture. And as I stated, they're doing new construction over here, so you see some activity, which is very positive. And they have a sidewalk that encompasses the site. Looking at the new construction just to the north is here. Came in through our board and received approval as well. Get a feeling for the neighborhood. You have some larger structures. This is to the west of the subject site. To the south of the subject site, you have these period homes. And to get a kind of feeling for the neighborhood as well, this is looking down 10th Street to the north. Property in question is to your right over here. I showed a series of photos. This is the new construction that is to the north of the subject site. This is looking to the north. And just to conclude, this is 10th looking to the south, back towards Columbus Drive. And you see the fabric of the neighborhood, the historic fabric here, and then some larger structures as well. This time, I'm going to have the agent address the board. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Joe Gibbons with Galway Builders.
Switch, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Joe Gibbons with Gulf Bay Builders. I'm the applicant and the builder of the project. And starting with our site plan. So this is a proposed new single-family home with a detached accessory structure, a one-car garage that will be accessible off of 17th Avenue. The home is going to front onto 10th Street, and the setback is going to be in line with the home that's to the north that we just finished construction on a few weeks ago. Our current setbacks are 10 feet from the rear of the sidewalk along 10th Street, 5 feet on the south side. As Ron had mentioned in some previous sandboard maps, there was some significant distancing, so we wanted to keep some distance between the new home to the north as well as this proposed new construction, which is about 18 feet. This is looking from 10th Street, looking east towards what will be the front of the home. There is a current retaining wall that's going to be rebuilt due to some significant damage that is along the south side of the property. There's a tree that had, the root system had grown and pretty much destroyed this retaining wall. So we're proposing to reconstruct the entire retaining wall along 10th Street and then along 17th Avenue, as well as new sidewalks. This sidewalk here, this portion will be removed with the grass median replaced. Going back to the site plan, we're going to access the one-car garage off of 17th Avenue by way of a ribbon drive. Most of the ones that we've done here in the area are 3-foot ribbons. We have a 3-foot concrete, 3-foot grass, 3-foot concrete, and then grass on either side of those. Moving on to the proposed elevation, it is a bungalow that we feel is architecturally appropriate. This is the elevation fronting onto 10th Street. It does have a recessed porch. The entire front is a porch, 8 feet in depth, and then it also recesses back to another
Can you
entrance.
take that and move it down a little bit? We can't see what you're pointing at. Oh, this way.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it has another entranceway that's recessed back quite a ways. You can see here, this is where the porch kind of wraps around to this other entranceway here. The rear of the property, there's another full glass door. Gotta have these in order. The home will be built on a stem wall that will be, the new home to the north sets approximately, because of the way 10th Street runs north, the elevation kind of increases from the corner of 17th and 10th up to the new home to the north. It rises about almost 12 inches. So we're going to keep the floor plans kind of in line with the grade of the road. Right now, our proposed finished floor elevation is about 30 inches off of the existing finish grade. It is a wood frame construction that's built to the National Green Building standards. Some of the features of this is showing the stem wall. Our proposed new home at 2801 North 10th Street, we're going to continue the brick facade all the way around all four sides of the foundation. We do the exposed rafter tails, outriggers. It's hardy siding with the artisan 6-inch trim. We do build out the corners. It's approximately 1.5 inches with the hardy. We do have exposed soffits that will be a tongue and groove V-board. The windows are same windows we've been using on a lot of previously approved projects. Are the JELD-WIN Sightline. They are a wood window with a clad exterior. The roof shingles are the GAF Timberline Architectural, and then the front door that we use shows the front door, the dimensions. This kind of shows what the front door is. It's a Craftsman style, one light, impact glass. This kind of shows some more of the detailing, how we do our corners, our exposed soffits. Typically, we'll do a crown above the windows. We have we've worked with Ron and staff on our window sills. It's kind of hard to show here, but this is a tongue and groove V-board. Our columns are typically wrapped in the brick. This would be a back door. Again, kind of detailing how we do our exposed rafter tails. On the proposed construction at 2801 North 10th Street, we're going to continue this brick wrap all the way around all four sides. We always put the air conditioners concealed in the back. This is the accessory structure at 2803. This will be the same size and dimension as the one at 2801. This shows the retaining wall that's going to be rebuilt. And, typically, we'll do a footer. I think when these were built back in the day, they probably didn't have a footer, and that's why some of them have fallen down. We redid one at 922 Columbus, and it was just actually sitting on the sidewalk that was there. So when we excavate this out, we'll do a footer, some rod, block, and then a smooth stucco finish that will be painted to the body of the house color. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Applying the application of standards for new construction in Ybor City on pages 51 through 54. Some of the items that we address are the height and the width, the setbacks, the spacing, the similarity of details and forms with the new construction with the historic fabric within the district. This request meets it. Staff feels that the application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines that were submitted to us on March 6th, 2020. Having said that, staff still has some concerns with some of the architectural features that were submitted this morning. I'd like to go through those at this time. Mr. Gibbons did talk about the front yard setback and at 10 foot to be an averaging of that block face that's already established. I think additional information needs to be addressed as far as elevation from grade to show the consistency along that block as well. On the elevations, he has a series of columns that wrap around, and then he has an engaged front porch. I believe that one additional column, a half column at this location here, to terminate the porch would be appropriate. You see the incorporation of those half columns throughout the district. He had indicated that the base of the structure will all be in brick. A brick sample should be submitted to staff so we could review that and look at the consistency with the district on that. And then usually there's a transition board from the siding to the foundation and how he's going to treat that transition. On the rear elevation, it appears that the casing and that band board are in conflict, so the jogging of that window at this time, further discussion is needed on that as well. On the front porch, it is a brick decking on it, and I don't see the incorporation of a lip or the shadowing, the overhang on that, on the drawings that were provided. So what are his intentions to finish out that detail as well? Lastly is to score all the surface concrete, the hardscape, historically correct. There's a pattern down that street, and as he does the ribbons into the private property, to score those and to provide reference for that scoring pattern to staff prior to moving forward. I don't know if he touched upon colors, but that is something that this board has purview as well. I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, we are to public comment. If there is anyone here to speak for or against the project, now's your chance. Oh, that's a microphone wiping. You're not going to speak. Okay, seeing none, we will move to commissioners asking questions, and we'll start on my left, please.
Yeah, I have a question. I think it's a big one. What was your thinking behind wrapping the porch around to the inside of the lot as opposed to wrapping it around the corner?
The person that I've have the home sold to wanted to have it on that side so they can enjoy the
Driveway?
not the driveway, but the exposure to 17th Avenue.
It's on the outside.
Well, then I'm looking at it wrong.
Yeah, it's on the outside.
Can you put the site plan back up real quick? to facilitate the question.
So the wraparound porch is along the south side, right here. And
Okay,
this is 17th Avenue.
I'm wrong. No questions. Thank you.
One question about the site plan, is the large tree on 17th being retained, or is it being removed?
No, we've had our own arborist out there, and it's exceeded its life expectancy.
Okay. Are we commenting on just the site plan, or kind of comment on the elevations too?
Site plan elevations, details, wall sections.
Okay. In addition to the comments that staff brought up, I had a couple. One did have to do with the way that it seems on two elevations, the crown of the windows hit the band board, which isn't a detail that we typically see within the historic district. So I'm just wondering if there's a way you can bring those windows down. And then secondly, you show there's a front door, and then on the rear of the wraparound porch, you have another door that looks similar. More traditionally, that second accessory door would be not the same prominence as not the same design as the front door. So I'm wondering if you might consider doing a door with perhaps more glass, more like a porch door.
Yes, I would consult with the owner as well as with the Ron staff.
Okay, those are the only comments I had.
I mean, so just going off some of the comments that staff had brought up, is the elevation from grade consistent with the other structures along the street?
Yes. Well, what we'll do is we shoot the grades of the road. Since it is a corner lot, we shoot a few extra grades along 17th and along 10th Street. And our proposed is a minimum of about 30 inches. The home to the north, the finished grade on that was about 32 inches.
And then along the porch as well, the half column is terminated, as Ron had brought up as well. Is that something you are open to adding to the elevations or to the project as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of Ron's comments on the front porch, if I can find that one real quick. This kind of shows the lip right here that extends over. So if we're going to wrap this in brick, then that's going to extend out just past the brick as well.
Okay.
Right along here.
And then have the colors for the project been decided yet?
No, what we've done in the past is this home is sold to a buyer, and Ron's got a new color plat that we work with, and then we have them select colors, and then we'll get with Ron and his staff for his approval and recommendations.
All right, great, thank you.
No, my questions have already been answered early on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's hold what you have here currently for discussion on the window conflict that we see, the trim that is going into that board that separates the gable ends from the wall itself. In this particular image that you're showing here, you can see the window isn't in conflict with that band.
Correct.
In the elevations that you've shown, a couple of those windows kind of trespass into that band. So I think that conflict needs to be worked out a little bit. Sometimes you see that detailing where that top crown portion goes away and the window gets absorbed into the top band.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a detailing issue there that isn't really historic, and it's more of a well, I think that we see it as a conflict on those two windows, the one in the center window there and the smaller window above that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that's something that needs to be detailed a little bit differently. On this particular elevation as well, you're showing a couple different locations for the faux gable vents.
Yes.
Typically, you would have those on all three sides, and so the back the backside there as well. I think that whatever venting you're proposing as an aesthetic would carry through all of the gable ends.
Okay.
Personally, I think that particular arrangement that you have, the two vents side by side, is a little bit horizontal compared to like the columns that you're showing here. A lot of the other columns that you've shown in your projects are a little bit larger, you know, a little bit bulkier. These are very thin and vertical. You know, with this, with those particular vents, you could, you know, probably go down to a single, similar to maybe the scale of the window that you have on the back, and provide that as a solution there.
Okay.
And I think that, I know that we see these details in different projects again and again, so it'd be nice to have a couple different versions of these vents that are applied depending on what the particular aesthetic of the building is. So that, I think that's something to consider with your design team and with the applicant. The half column, are we only talking about one location for that? As it dies back into that wall? Is that?
Right in here.
Is that wall and the back wall, are all of those columns are in the same plane?
Yes.
Okay.
I would prefer maybe to do a full column here.
Rather than the half? I think that it'd be interesting to see what the rest of the district has and what other historic examples you have, because you would have sometimes an engaged column there, a pilaster, that creates what Ron was referring to. I just see 1, 2, 3. I see 4 corners where that column could be engaged, and what I wouldn't want to do is just put it in one spot and not the others. So, I mean, I think that the way that it is currently, if there are 4 corners that don't have them, that's okay. But if we start to engage columns, then a single one would look awkward. So I'm okay with not having them in all of the corner conditions. That's just as you go around the house and you follow the porch around, that detailing would want to be consistent. And I think that when you get around the backside there for the back porch door, it'd get kind of cramped there on that top right elevation, where you have a single column there that goes into the rest of the house. So that detailing needs to be, I guess, considered and thought through to all of the different corners if it's going to be part of the solution. But as it currently is presented, with no pilasters and no engaged columns, I'm okay with the 0 portion of it. But picking and choosing the corners that they go on would be something that we'd have to let you look at with staff and get that approved. You talked about the setbacks, you talked about the elevation. Yeah, I guess you have the advantage of building the house next door to it, so you know what the elevation is and you know where you're building to. So, okay, and then I'm comfortable with the rest of the items being delegated to staff.
Did we see elevations for the accessory structure? I'm not, if we did, I apologize, I don't recall, but this would be a good time to just look at them again.
I think it was a photographic reference to something that's similar.
Well, the reason I mention it is that on the photographic reference, the door, not the garage door, but the door on the photographic reference appeared to be a metal door. And a wood door with a different kind of pattern might be more appropriate for an accessory structure.
For the overhead door or the
No,
accessory?
the door for a person.
Man door.
A man
Service
door.
This door here?
Yeah. On the photographic reference you provided, me, it appeared to be a metal door. But besides that, it should be a wood door, and it also if you look at the guidelines, there's different doors for accessory structures that would be more historically appropriate.
This is the accessory, or the
Okay.
accessory door to the garage on 2803.
Is that a wood door?
They're actually fiberglass.
Okay. It didn't appear to have the same kind of depth and detail that you would find in the district. That's why I mentioned it.
Okay. So with that, you've heard the commissioner's questions. You have time allotted for rebuttal. I think you've been playing along as we've been going, but if you have comments or additional information for our consideration.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is just get with Ron and finalize the placement of the windows in the back here to try to bring this window down as well as this window so the crown does not go into the band board,
Right.
as well as the columns that we can get that finalized with staff.
Okay. So with the conclusion of your rebuttal, we'll close the public hearing and we'll discuss the case from my left.
No, I have nothing further. Thank you.
I agree with the comments presented by staff and the additional comments that we brought up. In regards to the column, I agree with Commissioner Thompson that as presented to me, it's fine. But I'm also open to additional discussion that could be approved by staff if it's decided to either alter the pattern or the spacing of the columns or adding a pilaster.
Agreed, and I believe as long as the applicants work with Ron like he's done in the past, we should see a successful project.
I agree with everything that everyone shared.
Okay. So with that, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion for a final approval with conditions. This is to move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 20-64 for the property located at 2801 North 10th Street with the following conditions: that the applicant meet with staff and provide additional information regarding the elevation of the front porch, the detail for the concrete slab at the front porch condition, discuss with staff any modification of the spacing of the columns presented and/or the addition of additional columns or half pilasters, or pilasters rather, modifying the crowns of the two windows at the 17th Avenue elevation on the rear so that they don't conflict with the band boarding, provide a historically accurate or historically influenced concrete patterns on the drive, present final color and light fixtures and signage for the property, consider replacing the secondary man door on the front porch so that it's different than the front door. Alter the gable vent details, sizes, and locations as talked about at the public hearing, and also select a different man door for the accessory garage structure. I think I got everything right. I was taking notes. Because therefore, based upon the findings of fact, the proposed project would be consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons: that the new structure meets the guidelines in terms of mass, scale, materials, and detailing.
We have a motion.
Second?
We have a second. Do we have any discussion? Or I'll turn it over to you. Do you understand the conditions that are as presented and attached to the motion?
Yes, yes.
Let me ask a question of the motion that was presented. Does the way you worded the motion allow the owner agent to move forward with the porch as presented, or does it require them to go forward and discuss further?
The porch, in regards to the porch, you mean the elevation and the detailing and the columns, or was there another issue?
I think that we're all on board with the staff working on the placement of the windows and ironing that out. I wasn't quite sure where we left off the columns.
Oh. Well, it seems like you and I agreed that as presented was okay.
Right.
Staff had a concern that maybe it needed to be, for there to be additional discussion.
Right.
If you'd like the motion to reflect that as presented, I'm fine with that, if the other commissioners are.
I just want to make sure that the
We're clear.
applicant has the clarification they need.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
We're good?
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
thank you.
Are you going to vote on the motion?
We are.
Okay.
We are. So make sure everybody's on board. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. We have buy-in from the agent. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Moving down the agenda, the next item is BLC 20-67 for the address of 1302 North 17th Street. The zoning classification is YC6. The request in front of you this morning is twofold. They're asking for a variance to reduce the number of parking spaces from 1 to 0 for a business professional, and for new construction for a certificate of appropriateness with site improvements. I'd like to start with the 1929 Sanborn map. I think this is a very powerful tool here. Shows the property in question, which is here, has an eastern exposure to 17th Avenue, and below it you have, 17th Street and 2nd Avenue that runs east and west. You see some of the historic fabric, that these are houses that creep down from the more residential component from 6th, 5th, and 4th into the more commercial core and industrial sector as you approach the railroad line that was on 1st Avenue, which is today is Adamo. You see the empty parcels that are here, and just a little bit of the residential component to the north. If you look at a current overhead, it's a vacant parcel that faces 17th Street and 2nd Avenue. This is the housing stock that I alluded to that is still there. There's 4 out of the 5. This is a non-contributing structure that completes the block. But I think what's important to look at this overhead shot is the massing and the density of the rooftops of the industrial sector that flanks this small parcel, the outdoor parking that's here, and the outdoor storage that is allowed in this industrial section. This is a vicinity map. A lot of times I don't show it, but I think in this particular case, it has some reference. You see within the whole historic district, it's outlined in red, this green box here is the subject site. So it's on the southern fringe within the Ybor City Historic District. You notice the concentration of non-contributing structures all around it, and then speckled through you have some contributing structures. This is looking back at the parcel from one of our brick streets. This is 17th Street, looking to the west. You see some of the fabric behind it. This is the abutting structure to the north, which is a contributing structure, and a series that completes that block that was indicated on the Sanborn. This is looking down the block back towards 7th Avenue, or really to 3rd and 4th as you progress to the north. And then you see across the street, the industrial sector. Looking right outside of the request, this is the image that they'll get of the non-contributing structure. To the south, looking towards Adamo, you have a non-contributing building as well with surface parking. Looking down 17th Street towards Adamo, you kind of get the flavor of what's existing there today. And just to conclude with a couple of street shots. This is looking down 2nd Avenue to the west. Once again, take into consideration the fabric that's there, the larger street, the parking on the streets. And then turn around looking down 2nd Avenue, see some of the Kwanzaa huts that came in at a later date as info property. And this is looking down 2nd Avenue to the east. And that concludes the photo presentation.
Good morning, my name is David Bailey. This is my wife, Stephanie Harrison Bailey.
Hi.
Just wanted to run through a little bit about us. I was made aware that the chair asked that we start with the variance first before we move into the rest of the project. But just a little bit about Stephanie and I. We live in Ybor City. We are architects, developers, and owners. We've constructed roughly the value of about $1 million worth of development ground up in Ybor City, so we're very pro-Ybor. And you might recognize this from one of our latest projects, which are some tiny houses on the corner of 4th Avenue and 15th Street. The one on the left we built in 2015, and the one on the right was in 2018. One on the left won a Hillsborough County Design Award. One on the right is just popular for other reasons, photo opportunities. This year we launched an exciting new company which will be based in Ybor City called Nimble, and this keys into our presentation today, so we'll share more about that in a bit. So as Mr. Vila described, our variance request is to go from 1 parking space to 0, and the reason for this request is that this lot, which is historically platted, is much smaller than the typical Ybor lot. In addition to that, the lot has no platted alley access. The third item is the construction of the parking field that would be code compliant would take up way more than half of the site, which really damages the economic feasibility of development on this site. And lastly, as Mr. Vila showed you in photos, the industrial corridor that surrounds this site is, in essence, kind of a wasteland. There's just blocks and blocks and blocks of street parking that is absolutely not utilized. And having lived in Ybor City for a while, even recently we've seen waivers presented for other projects going from 18 parking spaces to 0. So we hope that our 1 to 0 is pretty nominal. Just to kind of quickly highlight the history of the site, as Mr. Vila pointed out through the Sanborn maps, as long as I've lived in Ybor, this corner has been kind of a derelict leftover that is just a place where people dump tires and scrap metal. So our hope is to take this to a level that not only makes us proud as architects and developers, but contributes back to the neighborhood in a way that it hasn't for decades. Just again, more photos on the current street situation and almost non-existent street parking there. And this is back looking towards the east, so this would kind of be the back of the site from 2nd Avenue. Again, just highlighting the industrial, I think Mr. Vila refers to it as the southern industrial fringe. It's kind of no man's land that we tend to make a little more special. So that's our presentation for the variance portion of our request.
Along with the information that Mr. Bailey provided, on page 5 of your staff report is the statement of the variance hardship criteria. I would ask Mr. Bailey to go through that criteria as well and enter that into the record.
Microphone, please.
The application basically echoes what I said earlier. This is just a formal application that states that the historically platted property is significantly smaller than a normal platted property, that the parking space configuration would take up more than half of the site.
And I think this one says a third, just because that was a previous variance we were going to go for that was backing the parking spot directly into the street. So that would have been a variance in itself.
And then lastly, as I've already stated, just the fact that this industrial corridor has a plethora of on-street parking that is not utilized. So we would hope that that would influence your decision to go from 1 to 0.
I get that thumbs up from Ron there. Okay, so thank you for reading that into the record. I guess with that, we want to focus on the variance first, because if it doesn't go forward, we can't consider the certificate of appropriateness for what you want to accomplish on the site. So with that, we'll open it up for public comment. So there is public comment, all right. Got some.
John Marsh, Urban Planner 2, Transportation Planning. This is a weird venue. You have to be patient with me. This is my first big outing since March. So,
Good for you.
I have to paraphrase some of my comments since we're doing the waivers. It's such a small development. There's only, the parking requirement is just one space. Since it's just one space, our code and the state statute requires it be an ADA space. So we're talking about really the provision of an ADA space. So when the original site plan, I saw this site plan yesterday. This was, the revised site plan was not circulated to me. The original site plan had one parking space off, was it Second, I believe? Yes, thank you. Was off Second. It was not dimensioned correctly, so original comment, because the state for it now is it's like 12 by 18 with a 5-foot aisle. It takes up a lot of space. So at the time they said they really didn't like using that much space. We gave, what we wanted, transportation wanted them to put the entire space on the lot. They had space to put one ADA space on the lot with maneuvering space, just barely. But we gave them 3 options. Option 1 was to do what I just said. Option 2 was to have a variance to back. That was our compromise, was to have a variance to back into the right-of-way. A residential use is allowed to back into a local street, but not a commercial use. So that we gave them that option. Option 3, which we are opposed to, is reducing parking from 1 to 0. I was not aware that they were planning to take the extra space for further development. The further development obviously would be requiring another space, another parking waiver to 0. So we would object to that as well. And finally, my supervisor wanted me to mention that while there is parking on that street, it is not designated on-street parking. People are allowed to park on a street in the city of Tampa. except for those areas where they are not allowed to, like arterial, though we see this, arterials. This is not a designated parking like we see in other parts of Ybor, so there's no guarantee that that parking may remain if there's redevelopment in the future. But there obviously is parking on that street. So I'm available if there's any other questions.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Seeing none, we'll have commissioners ask questions. To my left, Mr. Schiller.
No question.
One quick question. The square footage that we've been given is 480, and I saw on the rendering, it appears to be like 2 storefronts and some outdoor space. Is the 480 for both storefronts? And then the future development for the project appeared to show another 3 small,
So yes, to answer your first question, approximately 480 for the 3, which are basically two retail, or I'm sorry, 2 office units and kind of a courtyard combo with a bathroom. And then the future development would be 3 additional units.
and each of those are about 240 feet then, I guess?
Yeah, roughly, maybe even slightly smaller.
So what's the dimension of a typical unit?
8.5 feet out to out by 24 feet.
Okay. I'm trying to understand how large a handicap spot would be overlaid onto this property.
As Mr. Marsh said, fully compliant ADA space with maneuverability is pretty much up to the back of the project that we're describing.
Okay, thank you.
And then with the option to back out into the street, how much space is reduced for that one parking spot?
I believe that dimension is, there's a 5-foot setback, 12, 8. We might have it. Do you have it?
Not printed.
Yeah, please.
This was the original drawing,
Oh, okay.
and it would need to, this.
Can you use the
Microphone, please.
microphone so that it's on the record?
This is the original drawing, and the space would have needed to be extended out another, 3 feet or 4 feet this way with an apron. And that would be with that variance. So that would still leave about this much of the property there. That was our compromise.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
I don't think I have any questions right now.
Okay, I do. I need some clarification, maybe from legal, on how we address this. One, we need to come to a decision and a motion on the variance request for this particular project. That allows you to set forth, hypothetically, let's say it's a yes, then we go to the certificate of appropriateness for what you want to accomplish architecturally on that site. What you want to accomplish architecturally on that site in this presentation shows future development that would require an additional variance in order to go for that second certificate of appropriateness. So if we have, let's take this hypothetical, if we go yes with parking, we have submitted into the record something that is a certificate of appropriateness for something we haven't yet voted on for a variance that would be required to approve what they're talking about in the future.
So, Kamaria Pettismaker for the legal department. What the commissioners should vote on is what the application is presented for, and that's the only thing that we can consider, is what is presented and applied for today. Certainly staff can address any future requests, but we can only focus on what is presented today for the application. And the variance, the commissioners, I apologize, can only vote regarding the variance that's here today. We can't, the commissioners cannot consider anything from the potential in the future, only what's presented today.
And in today's presentation, they're asking that it go from 1 to 0 based on what we saw today.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So, given what we've seen in the presentation thus far, where we have seen notions of a future expansion, although that is by definition in the future, is that considered part of this testimony and part of what we are considering?
That was put on the record today from the applicant about what could happen, but again, that's not a part of the application.
So we're limited to the 6 hardship requests and evaluating that strictly
Correct.
for this point in time?
Right.
Okay.
May I ask one more clarifying for
Sure.
me? So hypothetically, should they come forward in the future, and I don't mean to talk about you like you're not here, but should they come forward in the future with the second design, that will also be a discussion about whether or not there's a variance in the parking, and that's when the handicap parking conversation would probably occur, correct?
No, well,
Because they're not proposing that they build the second facility in this one right here. And in what they're presenting to us, it's taking it from 1 to 0.
correct.
Next time, should they come back, because they're going to expand their second building onto that, whatever their proposed was, it's at that time that we'll have the conversation about the parking, the handicap parking, correct? Because that's where that's happening on the site. Am I making sense in what I'm asking?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I live
Well,
most of life that way.
Because the handicap portion is what transportation is recommending as the required space.
For right now, for
Well,
this application.
The diagram that we saw that Mr. Marsh presented is the transportation's recommended approach to dealing with the one spot on this site. And the challenge with, the hypothetical challenge with that is that if you put that spot in place, it limits the future development of the site. And the certificate of appropriateness that we would be considering immediately after voting on this would be for a project that might be in conflict with its future self.
So if they come back with a future project, there's not going to be we're not going to have to do a variance on parking for a future project?
Mr. Marsh says yes.
So we're going to have to variance them both. We're going to have, they're requesting
That's-
variance on this one, and
Right.
there would be variance on the next
That,
one.
exactly, and
For a
that's kind
spot
of
that
the
don't-
reason for me asking the questions, that we were gonna have to come back in and do a future variance for a future spot, for a future building.
For a property that only has one parking spot, we're going to variance it twice?
Well, if they came
I'm
back.
sorry, I just need to
If they
make
came
sure I
back with
understand.
with the additional future project, what I understood was that there would be an additional parking space required.
I have to be careful what I say.
Sorry.
Yeah, luckily I watched a lot of Star Trek, right? Keep going back
Yeah.
in loops, yes. Yeah, legal's correct, we can only review what's in front of us.
Right.
Though they did introduce the future development, though. We've had this problem before, where people try to propose phased development, and we keep telling them, one, you have to show us how it meets code at each phase.
Right.
And then we deal with it now, and then it's locked in. Or you have to meet it, it has to meet code at each phase, or get variances at each phase.
Right.
So, right, I'm not sure if he adds this additional, does he have to replat? I don't know. I don't understand. So we would probably, if you granted the waiver and then they came back at a future time as a separate case with a new one, we would probably object because it was basically like, again, a self-imposed hardship. It's like they created the non-conforming condition.
Right, but does the square footage that they're requesting potentially in the future generate the parking space?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say it.
Again, I would just like to remind the commissioners that I hear the conversation, but we have to stay focused
Right.
on what's applied for or asked for today
Right.
for the various requests.
I've always been trained that we cannot predict.
Right.
But we've all seen this. You know, you live in Tampa. There's been many proposed projects that do not come to fruition.
Right.
So that's why we're trying to, as each thing gets built, either it gets considered correctly,
Mm-hmm.
because it may be there for the next 40 years, so.
Does the Department of Transportation have any guidelines on, so the lot size, they say it is smaller than your typical lot, right, 30 by 70. So is there a Department of Transportation guideline for where parking is then not required on a lot if it meets us, if it's a small enough
I
size?
have to apply the code,
Okay.
period,
Yeah.
regardless of, you know, whatever, whether I like it or not
Yeah.
like. I have no
Sure.
architectural opinion, as I've been told. We don't have any provision in the code for these small buildings as of yet.
Okay.
Right.
So we don't have, it's strictly, you know, it's a rounding thing, I suppose, you know, it's per, whatever it is, per 1,000 feet.
Right. Okay.
And once you
Right.
provide one space, you have to have the ADA space.
Right,
Period.
understood. All right, thank you.
I don't know if this is a question for you or perhaps for Ron, but we were showed that this singular lot at the end is at the end of a series of similarly sized lots that are contributing structures. I'm just wondering, are we aware, is any off-street parking provided for any of those lots that face, what's the avenue that this is on?
17th Street.
17th Street? Because, again, we're looking at the historic patterns within the neighborhood.
Right.
So I'd be interested in knowing if any of the other, if there's off-street parking provided.
Ron has something.
I'd like to elaborate on that. Ron Velo, staff for Historic Preservation. This is the Sanborn that we use. And I was illustrating the fabric as you go down 17th Street to the north, and you see the footprint of the houses with no alley. There was no parking incorporated to these structures. If you look at the consistency over here in the immediate vicinity as well, and then over here. So, I can't really tell what's happening here. There's a little bit of space in between the buildings. No alley towards the rear, but an alley towards the north. The alley plays a huge asset to, the maneuverability for the vehicle. But if you look here, there is no access from the primary street. There was an alley incorporated into the blocks, into the grid throughout the district, but you see some of them are landlocked, and there was no way that they had parking. So parking and the vehicles were always secondary in nature in the historic districts in the early 1900s. Their whole life was walking. Everywhere they went was very close. As the automobile became more vogue, then we kind of sprawled, like in the earlier case that I talked about. The land was a little bigger and they had a little bit more room. And then the other gentleman incorporated an accessory structure. These structures here, when they were currently built, there was no vision to have any accessory structures or automobile access at that time.
Okay, thank you, that really helps.
Let's see. So we've asked questions. The applicant, do we have any other questions before we close down the public hearing on the variance request? Okay, so the applicant has heard some of the questions and concerns that we have. We understand what we are able to consider at this particular request. Do you have any rebuttal to what you've heard thus far?
I think the only clarification, I don't know if this makes things better or worse, the code requirement for parking is 1 per 1,000. So we're under that threshold even if we did choose to expand. So I don't know if that makes things more clear or not, but arguably we're not talking about 2 parking spaces, we're still talking about 1.
The addition of the potential future development would not require another spot.
Correct.
Duly noted. Thank you. So we'll close the public hearing and discuss this particular variance.
I think I get this. And I think I like it a lot. I think it's brilliant. I think it's the future. It's a perfect fit for Ybor City, and I think it is Ybor City. There were guys that used to sell stuffed potatoes out of wagons and chicken eggs that they pulled out of their coop in a little stand between the alleys. I get it. It's really brilliant, and I congratulate you on that thought. It's really good thinking. But the most important thing to me is that it's Ybor City. It's pedestrian friendly, it's neighborhood friendly, it's another reason for people to walk on sidewalks, you know, and I think it's a great alternative without being a major multi-million-dollar prospect. There's a lot of bang for the buck here, and to me, it all goes to Ybor City, and I think that's a very good thing. And as far as the law is concerned, I know because I've been down there for 30 years, that they apply the zoning and the building and the fire codes and all these things as if you were building for the first time on a cow pasture, a 7-Eleven and a cow pasture in Wesley Chapel. It's really hard to get your exhaust hood not with 10 feet away from a property line on a 0 lot line building. I mean, these are the things you run into. And to me, I'd like to wash it away and let people do what people do when they have a brilliant idea. And that's how I'm feeling about it.
Excuse me, Kamaria Pettis-Malco from the legal department. Again, I'd just like to remind the commissioners to focus their discussion on the hardship aspect of the variance request and not comment on any design elements or, again, focus on the hardship aspect of the variance request.
Well, I see the hardship aspect too. Makes sense to me.
I could support the project. I believe that given the historic pattern throughout the district, especially on these smaller lots, and more specifically on this block of which this property is the fifth one of, not providing any on-site vehicle parking. I think the hardships that they've presented meets that. I would like to work into our motion, if we have a positive motion, that there be some form of alternative parking provided for bicycles or mopeds or some kind of alternative transportation, which they do seem to have room to provide.
And again, we have
Save
to
that for
focus.
the CA.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Hardship, yes or
Okay.
no?
And while taking the historic context into consideration, the project as presented right now, I'm a bit torn on, just because while Ybor is meant to be a very pedestrian-friendly, walkable, it's not always ADA-friendly. And because the parking space would provide an ADA space for the project, that's where I'm a little torn on it, because as presented right now, you can actually fit the parking space onto the lot. Is that correct? Right. And so that's where it has me torn. So that's just my 2 cents.
I've had my questions answered.
Okay, great. I think that, I remember your last project that you did, the smaller houses, and we had to get a lot of stuff out of the way, I guess programmatically and variance-wise to help push that along. So I think that the scale of the projects that you choose are interesting, but we need to evaluate this one. So I think we've heard everything we need to, and I'll leave it open for a motion to deal with the variance. If anybody wants to make one.
I'll make a motion, and I'll move for an approval without conditions in this variance. And I'll move that the variance request for case BLC 2067 for the property located at 1302 North 17th Street be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing based on the petitioner meeting the burden of proof with regarding the 6 hardship criteria set forth in Chapter 2796D of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances for granting variances as stated, and the evidence provided in this public hearing, specifically that the hardship criteria was met due to the very small lot that these folks are trying to develop. And I think that's the hardship to the property. In order to make this a viable project to the benefit of Ybor City, I believe that the hardship is here and demonstrated.
Mr. Commissioner, can you further elaborate? You've provided one hardship criteria about the lot size. What are the additional factors in consideration for the hardship?
Well, I'd have to find the,
Does he have to restate the ones? I mean, we have them in the record.
Okay. Are you basing your motion on the evidence that was presented on the record, or?
yes, I am basing my approval without conditions based on what's been previously read into the record.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, and just, if I can add it for the record, that I'm basing my second on the fact that there's historical precedent, specifically within this block on adjacent properties, for there being no on-site vehicular storage.
Okay, we have a motion and a second with a footnote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries, which means that you can continue on with your certificate of appropriateness.
Now for the fun part.
Does this require, Ron, do you have a part here, or do we
We're
go
ready
straight
to
into
go.
their
He
presentation?
could proceed with his presentation.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So just to get going here, the design guidelines, you know very well. We just listed them out here just for easier conversation. So we will proceed in the order that you said, but just wanted to kind of review these really quickly. Our site plan, you probably know now better than you did an hour ago. So we are proposing 2 bays of, we're basically going to use them as offices with a courtyard that kind of turns the corner. We like the way that kind of steps down to the corner, activates the corner a little bit more by having kind of a courtyard component there. And then you can see in the site plan that we've set back the front facade to be in line with the single-family residence to the north. Also gives us the opportunity to have some planters around the perimeter that we think kind of soften that edge as well. So overall, we're really just trying to turn this corner and again showcase an entirely exciting new use that this lot hasn't seen in decades. All the utilities are coming from the existing either avenue or street rights of way. We don't want to talk about that right now. So as far as height and width, we feel like this project presents a very compatible height and width to the site, not only to the adjacent structures, but just back to what Commissioner Schiller said about the way that Ybor City used to function was on a much more granular level. There was a lot more small entrepreneurs that were working and selling their goods. And we feel like this module is conducive to that type of historic behavior of entrepreneurs. We feel like this facade width is very sensitive. It's quite small in footprint. The setbacks that you can see above clearly align with the single-family residence to the north. And like I mentioned, the ability to have some planters around the corner to soften things up on the pedestrian level. The alignment, we feel, is perfectly aligned with the neighboring properties. Again, just echoing some of the previous statements, we feel that this project is an echo of what Ybor City was once upon a time. A lot of these small storefronts have been gobbled up, and you can actually, if you look down 7th Avenue, you can see some of the bones that used to be there of these individual little storefronts. They got gobbled up and made into, you know, mega dance clubs, or torn down, or now they're parking lots. And we couldn't be more excited about bringing that module back to Ybor City. Excuse me. Again, the building materials are compatible. Some of what we're going to use is more modern materials that kind of echo the flavor of the industrial fringe that surrounds the site, and some is definitely more traditional retail type materials. The doors and windows, their forms, their proportions, again, all of these first and foremost have Ybor City in mind, and we feel like we're echoing that in this design. Just to kind of run through the building materials in detail, the metal fencing, which is, you know, quite typical of what you'd see in Ybor City. The lighting is like a balance between modern and traditional, just really straightforward aluminum storefronts, attractive brass, you know, numbers for addresses. Working with city staff, Mr. Vila, we added some additional screening elements so that greenery could grow on the west elevation, just to kind of soften that in the interim. And the color that we chose is kind of a warm gray that again kind of harkens back to the industrial feel of what's surrounding us, but at the same time is elegant and complementary to the district. So again, I told Stephanie this morning, it's like, I need to be excited because I am excited. And this excuse me, this project means a lot to us. Why don't you take this last line, because it's...
The very last one. So each time we share our mission to give entrepreneurs a nimble platform to launch their dreams, they ask, when can I move in? Yeah, so just quickly to summarize that piece, we've been having conversations about little shops and little offices for a while in Tampa, and we have a long list of people waiting for them. So we're very excited to get these built kind of to function as our offices and kind of show units for what this new project of ours can be and can be for the Ybor City District.
Since the applicant has finished presenting his case, I've noticed that you have displayed your images on an iPad or something. Can you please make sure that Madam Clerk has all the documents that you showed to the commission?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines. With this very challenging and unique infill property in the industrial section, we had some additional concerns that could be discussed this morning on page 3 of my staff report. Just to elaborate on the presentation that was given, all the horizontal surfacing to call out the materials for the hardscape and the scoring to be traditionally correct. With the commercial properties, we do look at landscaping. This was obviously not a very heavily landscaped area, but to meet City of Tampa's minimum code for landscaping at the time of permitting. In the renderings and the drawings, metal awnings were shown. And if you could discuss a little more information about those awnings and the storefront system that is being provided at this public hearing. I'd like to incorporate the drainage. He said he's providing a flat roof, but I'm sure it's going to be a very low slope pitch roof with some rain leaders, gutters, or scuppers to kind of direct the water so it doesn't create a negative effect on the neighbors. And then lastly, I think to really make this building part of the Ybor fabric is the lighting, the exterior lighting, sconces that can be provided, the hardware, and then he did address the location for the signage, but as we work on that, I think the signage can really complement this building as well. I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. We have the time for public comment. Mr. Marsh.
John Marsh, Planning, Transportation Planning. I noticed on the renderings, I'm not exactly clear that there are planters that appear to be in the right-of-way. Are they in the right-of-way or are they on your property?
They're on our property.
Okay, just making sure. Okay. Just protecting the right-of-way.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? We don't have a big crowd today, so. So it's time for commissioners' questions. Mr. Schiller?
No, I have no questions, thank you.
I'd just like to see the elevations again. Well, that's a rendering. Let's get the elevation. Is there a side elevation? Not sure if we've seen elevations on all four sides of this project.
Yeah.
And the rear? The rear? Normally, we would see all four elevations.
We're anticipating the 8.5 by 11 formats.
Well, if you could just walk us through the elevations, a direction at a time so that we get them in the record.
Yep.
Yeah.
So again, just going back to the 17th Street elevation with the two bays facing 17th Street with the courtyard and the structure in the background there. This would be the south elevation. So again, trying to paint a picture of a pedestrian-friendly type of a landscape with landscaping in front of the fence in the courtyard space. We'd like to do, which we think would also be very in keeping with Ybor City, a large artistic mural of some sort on that south wall.
Obviously, to be approved.
Yeah. And there would also be scoring on this wall, right, which you don't show?
Yeah, I apologize for that. It's very
very light.
faint. It's a line weight issue.
Okay.
But yeah, it's about every 2 foot on center is the scoring.
Yeah. It's just, it's a seam in the metal
It's a
panel.
seam, yeah.
Okay. West?
And the west elevation is what I was referring to with these grills, basically, for allowing greenery to grow. And then all of the mechanical and trash and recycling will be on that, kind of tucked in back behind that.
With an enclosure.
Yeah.
In the north? That's the one.
Yeah.
Yes, so this one is about a little over 5 feet from the house itself, so maybe 2.5 to 3 feet from the existing wood fence that is there on site.
Yeah, the fence is kind of encroaching on
Onto
our property, so there's a slight little buffer there.
Is there a coping along the top?
Yeah, there's coping along the top of the wall.
Not shown on this drawing.
That's true. I think we have a line weight issue going on here because you're not seeing the
Okay.
lines every 2 feet and you're not seeing the coping.
Those are real light, you can see them.
Yeah.
Very vaguely.
Very faint, but the coping is missing.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, it's more of a comment, but I'll wait. Oh.
No, it's your turn.
Well, the shed roof over the door to the shed in the courtyard, based on the minimal information on the drawing and on the rendering, there seems to be an awkward way that they hit each other, which I hope you'll be resolving as you develop the project.
We will certainly be resolving that with staff. Again, it's not good to lean back on previous projects, but we've executed well in that regard, so
Okay.
apologies for that.
No other comments or questions?
You good?
Yeah.
I think overall, I think it's a great modern and economical reinterpretation of a lot of the elements you find in Ybor. And as sort of staff had presented before, as long as you work out some of those issues that they have, then I think it'll be a very successful project.
I have one question. Can you put the rendering up again for me, please? Thank you. So this courtyard area, that's the restroom right there, correct?
Correct.
So then if I'm in one of those two offices, I have to come outside and go through the courtyard to use the restroom. There's no access to the restroom from the inside?
That is correct.
And I'm assuming, and it's just clarification for me, because you brought up a good point, I'm assuming the restroom is ADA compliant?
Yes, it is, and conditioned. It could not be unconditioned.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I just needed to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, couple questions. Actually, that image there. The front elevation is, you had referred to some of, you said granular earlier as part of your discussion. And the execution of the facade is granular in that you're thinking about each unit, and the awning stops and then starts again. The doors are just, they seem to be just, one after the other, where when you walk down other storefronts in Ybor, even if they are, these smaller shops that are in a larger building, you have a continuous awning. You have kind of an understanding that the building is part of the larger streetscape and there's a symmetry to it. So I would make the awning continuous. Two, I would make the doors symmetrical in some fashion instead of just a copy paste. I think that if you do that, that makes the building look bigger, and it might be something that I don't know if you're going to consider building this in such a way that you could remove the middle wall if you needed to. It's so small that you might have a successful. What happens in those storefronts as entrepreneurs become successful in one, they want the next space and the next space, and that type of storefront allows not only a startup to get going, but allows them to kind of scale. So I imagine that that might be part of what you consider on the interior as we go forward. The backside of that, I imagine you're going to have a single slope that goes off the back. I would the elevation that you showed seemed to have the restroom portion going one way towards the courtyard, which seems kind of backwards. Maybe you're trying to get away from the utilities on the backside.
That I think that was actually a mistake. It actually is going towards the back, towards the where the waste receptacle is.
So it's just drafted incorrectly. Wherever that one. So that could be a mirror of that.
Yeah, and I guess here, the buildings proper, the form that you have there, the clean lines, that's great. I would challenge you to take that restroom and just make it a smaller version of that. I don't think we need to see a different type of coping. I don't think you need to see a slope on that roof compared to the other roof. I think that the detailing needs to all be the same because it's so small and it'll all come together in a better fashion. In that particular rendering that you're showing, we see the coping, we see it kind of just painted out with everything, and you see the similar detailing between the two buildings. So I think that that's appropriate, and there's a little bit of conflict in what you're presenting in the public hearing today.
Gotcha.
The backside, I think that we can delegate that to staff to work with you on how that is going to be guttered and downspouted. It's such a small space and such a small area that you can probably just have one downspout off the backside of it, and then a smaller one for the restroom. But you're making the effort to break up the backside with the trellis. That needs to be coordinated with whatever that downspout's going to be, and I'm sure it'll be painted out gray and industrial and slick, whatever it is. But it'll be something that you need to work with staff on.
Sure.
Other than that, those are my comments. So you've heard the questions that we've asked. You got 5 minutes to respond to provide any additional information for our consideration before we close the public hearing and make a motion.
I guess one quick question in regards to some of the exterior recommendations that you had. Would those be conditions or are they recommendations?
Well, those are my comments.
Okay.
So I won't be making a motion. Perhaps another commissioner will pick up those comments and want to incorporate them, or even through a second and by amendment, so they might be coming your way.
Okay.
But those are for discussion. If you have a question about what they are, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think it's more of a comment, and I get 100% what you're saying as far as the facade is concerned.
And kind of the continuity of it.
Yeah. The goal of what we're doing, in order to build these economically, they will be prefabricated off-site and brought in. So as much construction as we can do in the factory, we'd like to do as much as possible.
Right.
So we would like to have some sort of economies of scale there as far as structure and things like that. I think the opportunity to connect the two interior-wise is smart, and we've considered that probably more of a window-type connection in case there happens to be some sort of compatible. We have to work out the structure because in order to get these transported to the site prefabricated, we have a very deep C-channel steel that's along the bottom. So obviously we'd have to kind of reconfigure that in order just to put a simple door in between the two of them. But these are good problems to have. Like you said, once people become successful, they want to expand, and that's the whole part. These are incubator spaces to launch a concept.
Right. Well, I mean, from sitting here, we don't have control over what you do internally.
Sure.
Right. So, it's just kind of a point of question and curiosity on my part,
Yeah.
and trying to understand how this thing might get larger or used. I understand your comment about wanting to pre-manufacture them, and bring them to the site. The flip side of that is, I think that if it's going to be something that you can have an awning for each of them, you're going to want to align them exactly, or else it's going to look a little shoddy.
Yeah.
And the detailing that you're proposing suggests to me that it's going to be exact when you're done with it. On top of that, I think that you can do the scaling that you want by providing that, but you can incorporate it and tie it together with a simple piece of fascia that's applied on site. I mean, I don't think that that's too far to go, and it gets you where you want to by being able to make it and bring it and set it, and then you're done, and then you're going to be trimming things out when these things are on site. That fascia along the canopy might just be one of those elements.
Understood.
Makes sense.
Okay, so we'll close the public hearing if that's sufficient for your rebuttal. Anything
I
else?
don't have anything further.
Okay, closed. Commissioners?
Come back to me.
Okay.
Just would like clarification on your point. You felt the shed structure in the courtyard should be detailed more closely to resemble the other two? Okay, just
Yes.
want a clarification on that.
In the renderings, it shows it. In the line drawings, it's different.
Yeah.
And the applicant indicates that the line drawing is not quite up to speed with the intent of the design.
Okay.
And so, since this hearing becomes part of the record that Ron and staff can
Yeah.
rely upon, it's incumbent upon us to clarify what their intent is.
Right, no, I agree, and because of the minimal, I shouldn't keep saying minimal, sorry, because of the difficulty in understanding the presentation drawings, it would be important to clarify that.
Right. Okay.
No other
Good.
comments.
Based off of the rendering, I'm sure they can work with staff to finish out the detailing and everything else that's required for a successful project.
I got nothing.
Okay, we're coming back to you.
No, thank you.
Okay. My comments and concerns still stand. I think that the types of projects that you bring forward the commission are great because it's a detailed level that requires us to look at things, as Mr. Schiller was suggesting with the variance request, that where we actually have to do a little bit of work on our part to see projects that have hardships and help smaller scale stuff get up off the ground and help the community as well. So with that, we need a motion for the certificate of appropriateness.
I'll make one. Move to grant certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 20-67 for the property located at, hold on one second, 1302 North 17th Street, with the following conditions: that they detail the main structures and the accessory bathroom structure to be as similar as possible, that they meet with staff to go over granite curbing solutions, scoring of sidewalks, any landscape and hardscape materials, more information on the metal awnings, examples and installation details of their storefront system, and roof drainage details. Because based on finding with fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa for following the new construction and addition standards.
We have a motion with conditions. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion with conditions with a second. Do you understand the conditions that are attached to the motion?
Yes.
Do you agree to them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Into the microphone.
Yes.
Very good. Let me put a timeout on do you have a?
I have a comment. I don't know if this would be the appropriate place. I had discussed it earlier, and I was told that we'll be granted the variance. It wasn't the right time to bring it up.
Right.
But I would like to see on the site plan dedicated alternative transportation parking, such as bicycle racks or space dedicated for different kinds of vehicles that might be utilized by the people.
Okay, so that's an amendment to the motion. Do you accept the amendment?
Accept. Really?
Okay, so we have that. Hang on, before we go back to the voting or to the acceptance part. I want to ask legal. On this, we have, in the presentation that we have on the record, there are site plans that show future development. I want to make sure that do we have to provide a caveat that says that we are considering only the proposed current development?
Right, you could certainly, commissioners can certainly, you could certainly do that. That you're only voting based on the application that's requested for the agenda item today,
Right.
and not for future reference.
Is that understood?
Clear.
No,
Okay.
well, that was, there needs to be, if that's, I gave a response, so if the commissioner would
Right.
like to modify the motion that was made, you could certainly do that.
Right.
Based on the legal department's response.
Okay, and so the motion only applies to the development that has been proposed for the application for this hearing and not future development.
Okay, so we have an amendment and an amendment. Are we good?
We're good.
Well, can you just state for clarification purposes that the applicant acknowledges or understands the additional requests or modifications and they accept those conditions?
The applicant has been involved with the amendment of the motion a couple different times, and you are understanding and accepting of the conditions that are placed on the project as currently presented to the commission today.
Yes.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second, we have amendments, we have buy-in. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Great.
Thank you.
When do you break ground?
As soon as possible.
Yep. Well, good luck.
As soon as we find a warehouse.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Our last agenda item is VLC 20-90 for the address of 2203 North 12th Street. The zoning here is YC2. This is in for a request for a certificate of appropriateness for a single-family residence and for a variance, a request to reduce the parking from 1 to 0 in the YC2 zoning classification. The square footage for the single-family structure is 704 square feet. The square footage that is being requested is dictated by the parcel size. I always like to start with the 29 fire insurance Sanborn map. Property in question is highlighted in the green box. This portion of the Sanborn map, you see the illustration of the fabric and how dense this area was. As the prior case it had some challenges, so does this one here. This is an internal lot that has no alley access. This is on 11th Avenue that runs east and west, and 12th Street that runs north and south. 12th kind of currently dead ends into this parcel here, and then as it goes to the north, we have the interstate that it currently dies into. So this is a short segment of street that and this structure that faces that street. So you see a series of row houses that were very diminutive in square footage. The alley could access some of them that flank it, but the internal lots had no alley access for the vehicle. Going to a more current overhead, and you see the fabric here that is no longer. So what I just illustrated along 11th Avenue continued, and the modification to the grid kind of modified, the historic pattern. So all these houses were removed. There was a series of 3 houses here that are no longer there. In my lifetime with the city, we saw a fire come into this area, and the fire jumped and took out these 3 houses. So that's why these are no longer here. And then you have the sister houses to the north that are still there. But parking is a challenge within this fabric as well. And I mention that because that's part of the request coming forward. So looking currently, if you're standing here back at the site, you have this empty parcel with some trees. Natural Resources did come out and comment on the removal of these volunteer trees. Continuing down 12th Street, you see the brick streets, the granite curbing, and this is the alley that ran through that block that's currently there. You see the proximity of the alley to the fabric that's there. The house that's peeking around the alley is approximately a 700 square foot house, 1 story as well, with period appropriate fixtures. There is one historic element that remains that was damaged through the fire, but I think it's important to try to hold on to. This is the retaining wall that fronts the 3 lots on 12th. There is a pedestrian experience to the parcel, but there is no vehicular cut into this retaining wall at all. It runs the whole length of these structures, or this parcel, into the completion of the alley. Looking from inside the lot to the rear of the lot, this is the property in question. I wanted to show some of the vernacular. There's a lot of vegetation coming off the primary street, but you see a very modest home. You have some piers, foundation enclosure. You have horizontal wood siding, the casing around the windows, very sensitive 1/1 wood windows here, minimal overhangs with the corner boards, and a hip roof with a very shallow overhang as well, with a metal roof. Just to complete the experience here, the house or the lot in question is over here. This is, as I indicated, this street just dies into the interstate as you go to the north. And as you look to the south, property in question is over here, and it dies into the back of a church over here. That concludes the photo presentation. At this time, the agent will address the board.
Thank you, Ron.
Hello?
Morning.
Hi, good morning. Jay Harris, I'm a local small builder here in the Tampa Bay area. And I'm gonna start with the variance request for 2203 North 12th Street. Ron has already kind of showed you guys this lot that sits in the middle of two other lots. As he stated, there were 3 houses here originally, very small, 500-600 square feet. And they were burned down. And for my variance request for this lot it's a hardship that the lot brings upon itself. There's no alley access here. There never was a parking designation for the lot or any of the lots near it, as you can see. And what else? Put these here. This was printed off the Hillsborough County website. Ron put this on the record. He showed you guys this. There's no access from the alley or coming from this southern area near the parkway. So the lot is basically is landlocked by these 2 other parcels. And let's see here. And the variance request is to reduce the parking from 1 to 0. And this lot initially it's a non-conforming lot, but I had it approved. It's an approved non-conforming lot. And there's no accessibility from the street for parking, and the lot is considerably smaller than the other lots, most of the other lots around in the area. It's a 31 by 40, making it like 1,230 square feet, somewhere around there. It's stated no other houses have parking pads. The lot is causing its own hardship. It's not a self-created hardship. Variance will not interfere at all or substantially with others in the area, their safety or welfare, or other properties, as the renters or owners in the area or on the streets, they all park on the streets. The variance is going to be in harmony with the neighborhood, and it's going to serve the general intent and purpose of the chapter and the adopted Tampa comprehensive plan. And the variance will result in substantial justice to the public, as the benefits will allow for development and sustainability of the historic district and bring in tax revenues, as well as taking the hardship off this project. And it will be 100% consistent with the historic district and further add to its appeal, aesthetics, and sustainability. And there's not really much to say about it.
No, I appreciate you reading into the record the variance, the hardships that are presented in this case. We have the opportunity to have public comment.
Well, I don't know if the staff want to include anything else.
At this time, Mr. Marsh wishes to address the board. He's with Transportation. Mr. Harris did a complete review of the variance request, And after Mr. Marsh goes, you could deliberate about the variance.
Thank you.
I guess this case, once again, illustrates that all the easy lots are gone. We did review this. It's a very difficult lot because they also have to meet their stormwater and landscape requirements. I mean, it's a really, really tight design. It was staff's proposal for the applicant to waive from 1 to 0. It's theoretically possible to access the site by destroying everything on the site and basically building a garage. But that was our proposal, so.
And there is legal on-street parking?
Yes, you can park on the street. It's a low-density street. There's not a lot of cross-traffic. If there was an alley, given the shortness of the lot, it probably wouldn't be practical anyway. Because when I first started reviewing, I mistakenly thought there was an alley in there. You can't, the geometry doesn't work well for this site at all. It's just too small.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no additional public comment here for this particular variance request. So any questions from the commissioners, starting with Mr. Schiller?
No, I have no questions.
No questions.
Given the testimonies, no questions.
No questions.
Okay, no questions here. I think we'll move straight into a motion for this one.
Well, the applicant, I don't know if we want to put on the record, do you have any rebuttal?
No, I don't, no.
I'll make a motion. Move that the variant request for case BLC 20-90 for the property located at 2203 North 12th Street be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing. Wait, is this right? Yeah, okay. For a reduction of parking from 1 to 0. I'm reading out the wrong thing, I think. That's right, yep. Based upon the petitioner meeting the burden of proof with regard to the 6 hardship criteria set forth in Chapter 27, Section 27-96D of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances for granting variances as stated, and evidence provided at this public hearing specifically because of the lot size and the availability of on-street parking and the geometry and that it's landlocked. And all the other things that were put into the record by the applicant.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. There really isn't anything tied to the motion, so I'm sure you're in favor of that, so. We have a motion and a second to approve the variance going from 1 to 0 on parking. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay. Now the fun part.
So as stated, I'm Jay Harris again, local small builder developer. This project is going to be, I just built 3 homes in St. Pete. I have 3 more coming up, and I built one in Tampa last year. And this is going to be my 9th house that I built in the last couple of years. I plan on keeping this one for myself, not selling it. I live in Wesley Chapel. I come down, I want to hang out with my girlfriend or my family coming to town. You know, they want to experience the area. Tampa, so I want to have a place for them to go and for myself to go if I just want to stay the weekend downtown instead of traveling back 45 minutes back to Wesley Chapel. So this isn't something I'm going to sell. I'm going to keep this for myself. So I'm going to be a part of the community in Newport. Here's a site plan. As stated, this lot is a 31 by 40. We have setbacks of 3 feet on both sides. We have, there's that retention, or there's that wall in the front. There's a wall in the front. I don't know if you guys can see that here. plan on keeping the wall there and repairs as needed. So that I don't plan on taking that wall out. The front porch is going to butt right up next to the wall as the other houses in the area do. And the property line there, I guess, what is that? It's like 2 feet 2 inches back from the, is the setback there. There's a 10-foot setback in the back, and stormwater, having a discussion with them before this meeting, hearing today, and talking to all the departments. We have the retention pond in the back. That's a 10 by 5, and there's going to be downspouts and gutters, and the ADS pipes that lead to that retention pond. Site plan, it's not really much there. I'll go to the elevations. The elevations here, I'll have to show them one by one. Is that fine?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the front elevation, this looks exactly like the house next door. I've made 0 changes to it, other than there's hardy board. I have hardy board here. You have the half-light door. These the columns are going to be wood. We have the shingle roof. The hardy board is stated. The windows double. It's not showing the double hung windows. My architect had those opening, or he labeled those incorrectly. There's going to be double hung windows there in the front. We have the hip roof and a little small gable right there. Here's the back of the house. One window, the back door. We have I guess this would be front, the northern side of the house, 2 windows with the wood around the windows, and we have the southern side of the house, 2 more windows here. It's a really simple design. It looks like all the other houses. And here is the picture of the house actually next door to it. So I did want square columns, but I didn't want to, go against the historic department district too much. So I just kept the house exactly the same as this one here. So it's literally going to fit right into the neighborhood. And I'll pull out some of the details here. I don't know if this, this can't be seen at all, can it? No. So it's a block house. And the hardy board will be nailed directly to the block. We have there's a stem wall that will be at the bottom, 3 courses, 3.5 courses. That bottom stem wall, let's see. The bottom stem wall here is going to be stucco, smooth stucco, to cover the block lines up. And let's see here. It's a really simple design. Here's some of my other projects. House I just built in St. Pete and sold a couple months ago. As stated, I like the square columns, but I'm not going to have square columns here on this house. The side angle of it. Here's the other house next door I built next to that one. Same. I love stucco. It's different, or not stucco, but the hardy board. You don't see too much hardy board here in Tampa, but I guess it's in some places. Pictures. Here's another house. This is the last one I just finished here. It's on the market now, under contract. So I love these style houses. this is what I'm gonna bring to Ybor. Here's another house I built in West Tampa, McFarlane Park, 2525 West Cherry Street. I would like a more modern door, but I don't think you guys are gonna allow that. And here's the back of that house. And this house was 3 beds, 2 baths, 1,500 square feet. The lot size was 25 by 95, and the current lot in consideration right now is 31 by 40. And this is what that lot looked like. This house, this is what that lot looked like. So I am very well versed in working with small lots and putting up good projects. That's I guess that's all I have for right now.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Under staff's finding, this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines with the following conditions. Mr. Harris did engage with land development for a design exception for the front yard setback to be reduced. So he's already been awarded that design exception. We had been in discussion with the final solution for the retaining wall. He knows that's a sensitive treatment, and through construction, the materials, if he needs to remove them to get onto the site, to palletize them, to inventory them, put them back, and to emulate any additional material that needs to be incorporated into that historic wall. As part of our preliminary discussion, water retention was a concern. He did provide a small swell in the back. Why we look at that is a lot of times at your design drawings, we don't incorporate that far into our discussion. And a lot of times when the projects go to permitting, then we get examples of small depressions in the front yard, which are atypical to any historic district. So we try to incorporate the water retention on site that's complementary to the historic districts. In this particular situation, he's achieved that in the back. The windows that he had showed in his elevations, they operate more as casement windows. What are provided are double hung or single hung windows. So the operation of the windows are not currently depicted on his drawings. On the north elevation, he has a smaller window, which you see in floor plans that need to be sensitive as far as bathrooms and kitchens. In this particular case, the window seems a little wide. It's not historically correct. So if a smaller window needs to be incorporated, I would do it a little taller than wider that is shown on the plans. Also, the rear door just shows a generic door. A little more discussion on the rear door is needed. And then final color palette. If he's chosen it at this time, he could go ahead and submit that into the record.
No, I haven't, but it's going to be consistent, and it'll be picked from your the color palette. From
So that could be discussed at a later date and delegated to staff.
Yes.
Lastly, one of the positives about this project moving forward is block construction. So the installation of the windows will have the reveal that we're looking for. A lot of times under new construction, when it's framed, the structures are very flat. In this particular situation with the block construction, the windows will have that inset. That concludes my portion of this presentation. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. You have the opportunity for public comment. Seeing none, we'll move into commissioners asking questions.
I have no questions.
No questions.
Is the front door really not centered?
Well, yeah, well, if you saw it's not centered. The house next door is not centered either. It's because of, the house is so small, the lot's so small, and the way you design the house, like if it were centered, it would throw the sizes of the rooms off. You know,
yeah.
so it just wouldn't work.
I'm sure it was an internal consideration for why it happened, right?
Yeah, my
But-
girlfriend hated it.
I know, it really wants to be centered.
She
and
wants it centered, and I'm like, you can't make it centered. You know? So,
That's the only thing that's really been sticking out in my head, but okay, thank you.
No questions.
Do you have a plan so we can, do you have a plan of the interior? I just wanted to, I had picked up on the door too, and I understand that, you know, when the houses get so small that The
I have,
porch and the
they're not
interior.
showing, it's a one-bedroom, house. I have the plans on my phone, but it's not, I can't.
Well, we don't have any purview over what's inside the house.
Okay.
You know, it's just, for us, it would be just a way to look at the reasoning for the door being where it is, the front door. And I understand that, you know, you're probably fighting to get it as close as you can to the center. In this particular case, the example that you shows that door. I think it's a little bit, even though it's not centered, it's still in that middle bay. So if there's a way to scoot that door over just a little bit.
Even more to the left?
No, just more towards the center. Although we know it's not going to be centered. If it just occupies that middle bay, then I think with the photo you showed of the other house, it is a little bit, you see on that photo, you can see that the door is inside the bay. And I don't know if that's the way it looks.
It's in between
Yeah.
both columns.
Yeah, it's in between the columns. If that's a consideration that you can do, that's fine. I mean, otherwise, it likely won't, you know, that could be something that is put into the motion to work with staff on. It's more curiosity than anything. We have, switching gears, we've got the retention on site. You mentioned guttering and downspouts. They're not shown on the plans or the elevations. So those will have to be worked with staff.
Well, no, they're here.
Are they?
It's just so small, I don't think you guys can see it. So we have, here are the ADS pipes here.
Right. No, I don't disagree that you're showing them on the site plan.
Okay.
I understand that but on the elevations.
Yeah.
Is it guttered and downspouted to
Yes.
those ADS pipes?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so when you look at the elevations, there are no gutters,
You
right?
don't see it, yeah.
Right, so I would imagine that you would have, well, you're gonna have to have gutters on all the sides and downspouts on all the sides since it's a,
All four,
Yeah.
yep, on the, sorry for cutting you off, but
That's
on
okay.
the site plan, there's downspouts on all four corners.
Right.
And they're labeled there, yeah,
Right,
just
so
can't see them on elevation.
that'll be something that we need to reference for staff to work with you on to make sure that we get the appropriate location for those and put the elevations back up. I don't think we're gonna have any conflicts there. The only conflict is gonna be on the front with your porch and how to get that, the roof, the drainage off the roof. I don't know, do you have to gutter the porch as well?
Well, so here, let me show you, here are, so like on this house here,
Mhm.
well, you have the porch here, you see how it's this gutter,
Mhm.
or this downspout, and it goes right into the ADS pipe, so it's gonna
Right.
sit back on the side of the house.
Yeah, just the roof configuration that you have, that you're proposing for your project
Yep.
is different than that.
Okay.
And since the roof goes all four sides and drains all four sides, you're gonna probably have the need to pick up a gutter. I mean, we won't want to have any gutters or downspouts that go along the porch, and that'll be for you to argue with Storm about. But I would say that if you pick up the main roof with just a continuous gutter and downspouts in appropriate locations, that you'll be able to satisfy the criteria. But what we don't want to see would be downspouts and stuff attached to those columns. You know, that would mess up your porch.
No, that would look horrible.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No.
So we're gonna put that in the motion at some point here. And Ron had mentioned the fact that we, since it is a block home, we do have the benefit of being able to set the windows back and getting the depth that we like to see with the shadow. What we'll need you to do and work with staff on is the detailing for the jamb, making sure that the trim condition that you have that's on the facade turns into that into that depth that you're going to have with the block. So the detailing is correct. But that, again, that's something that Ron can help you get detailed correctly if it isn't already considered. But it's a better condition than when we see like wood framed houses and the windows sit real tight to the facade. It's not the good look. You'll end up with a better look. We just, as that trim turns around, we want to detail that correctly. Those are my comments. Let's see. You have a little bit of time here to address anything? Oh, we have one more.
No, definitely, yeah.
I thought we were on questions, but if I do have comments.
We're still on questions?
Okay.
So you're good?
Well, I have comments, but no
Okay.
questions. Okay.
So based upon what you've been asked in the discussion thus far, do you have any questions or rebuttal to what we've said? I mean, you've answered the questions as we've been going.
No, I want this process as effortless as easy as possible. Whatever you guys want, that's what's happening.
Okay. That's the best rebuttal I've heard. So we'll close the public hearing and discuss the case.
I only have one comment, and it's I really like the door off center. It's got Ybor City written all over it.
Just a couple comments, and I do appreciate the thoroughness of your presentation, but since the house is within a historic district, I do think that we just need to be clear, and this is probably things you can work out with staff, but just the scale of things like the fascia and the sideboards, based on the drawings, it seems like they're just a little bit undersized or perhaps a little bit off, so I would just like to add it into our motion that all the final dimensions of the individual pieces that make up the historic components of the facade are approved by staff, because it's a little bit hard to tell from the drawings.
Okay.
And then secondly, I guess more detail about the stoop to the porch stoop. You have a historic condition that we're trying to retain, but the relationship between that stoop and the new stoop onto the porch are very important as well. And because of the way the drawings and the elevations are done, it's hard to understand that condition completely. And then the last thing I just want to bring up for discussion with the board is the treatment of the foundation. My understanding is that he's proposing that it's just a smooth stucco, whereas in the past we've asked for some kind of indication of a brick pier or a brick foundation around the whole side. So that's more for what the board would like.
No further comments.
None there. I agree with what we've been saying thus far, and I appreciate your willingness to work with staff and get the project moving forward. I think that again, this is a unique project, and like Mr. Marsh said, all of the easy properties taken. So thanks for working with us on what the requirements are, and I'm glad we got the variance out of the way. With that, we'll turn it over to a motion for your project.
I could make a motion. What do we feel about the foundation?
In terms of the foundation, in my mind, because the house is so small, that if you start to articulate that, it's going to get fussy unnecessarily, where I'd rather have the detailing correct in the trim boards that you're talking about and the dimensional qualities of that.
I would agree.
Does the house next door, is it just a smooth foundation? I'm assuming it is.
It has piers.
Oh, it has piers? The house next door?
Find that picture.
Rob has it too.
I can't tell from this picture.
That's also the middle house of three. One already existing and another one maybe coming along in the future, and I don't think you'd see it.
No, actually, there's no house on either side.
Right, but if it were to be infilled.
Oh, I
house
see.
is around the
That was
corner.
the alley, that's
It's around the
correct.
corner, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah.
There.
It does, okay.
Yeah, so you can see there the historic one. That's the adjacent property
Yeah.
line?
There's an articulation of a
Yeah.
pier
Right.
system, but I think on this new construction, given the small scale of the house, I would agree that's just a more uniform look.
Right,
would
and
be appropriate.
I think that, obviously that's a pier for a wood frame. Here we know we're dealing with block, and it's gonna be,
Yeah.
it's gonna be easy to build to just go straight up and then articulate the bottom just with the smooth stucco.
Okay.
Any further discussion on your points?
All right, then I'd like to make a motion for a final approval to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing. And this is BLC 20-90 for the property located at 2203 North 12th Street. This is for new construction of a single-family residence with site improvements with the following conditions: that the applicant, per discussion at this public hearing, retain and incorporate the existing historic retaining wall, that the applicant consider moving the front door to be within the bays of the two columns that are being proposed, that double-hung windows and their details and the profile be submitted to staff, rear door details, more in keeping with one from the historic guidelines, to provide additional details for the rear porch railings that are in keeping with the historic guidelines.
Yes.
Provide more information about the material and location of the stoop on the front porch, and provide final color selections and lighting details to staff. Because then the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons: that the scale and materials and the placement of the structure on the site are in keeping with the patterns found throughout the historic district.
I'd like to propose an amendment to your motion, which would include the downspouts, delegating the downspouts to the staff to work with the locations and materiality of that.
Accepted.
Okay. So we have a motion with conditions and amendment. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Does the applicant understand the conditions that are attached to the motion?
Yes, I do, sir.
And do you agree to them?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Oh, and just for clarification, because I do agree that the offset door is unique and is precedent. Well, the motion just is to try to move it a little bit further within the column lines, not like center it or completely move it over, but it's just to see if you can nudge it over.
Yes. Okay, so you have a motion with amendments and a footnote.
Another footnote.
Which is fine.
I think he has a comment on that.
Well, yeah, you walk through the front door so that the bedroom is to the right, so the bedroom, I guess it could shrink up a couple of inches.
Yeah, it's, I mean, just, it's not, it's something that catches our eye. And as Commissioner Schiller indicated, it's very Ybor. So if there's a way that you can tweak it, that's fine. And I think that the language of the motion and the condition gives you that flexibility to work with staff on. But as presented and as discussed, the motion will move forward.
Okay.
So we have a motion, conditions, amendments, and acceptance. Yes? So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You did it.
Yay.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah, congrats. Okay, so we punted.
We did. We have the election of officers now to move forward. Our rules state that we do it yearly, usually in April, but since the current situation that we're in, we pushed it back to now. So at this time, we could take nominations for chair and vice chair. If we could leave them as they are and have a motion, or if you want to go in a different direction, you could do so at this time. So I'd like to hear nominations for the chair.
Move to keep our existing chair.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Wait, let me see if the applicant understands. Yeah, agreed.
Do you accept?
I do, thank you. We have a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And to conclude this morning's hearing, a motion for a vice chair, please.
Who's our vice chair now?
Levy.
I am.
Okay.
Are there any nominations for your vice chair?
I'm sorry, I got distracted.
Are there any
Are you leaving our committee? Are you leaving the commission?
Not that I know.
Okay.
Unless I get
is
voted
there
off the
a-
island.
Is there a nomination for your vice chair?
Oh, I'll make the motion to continue with our current vice chair.
Right. I'll second that.
Okay, great. Do you understand?
I was
I do.
misunderstanding.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
11:50, we're done.